chill people get more jacked on average than people who can't chill. That's a real thing. If you're going to take ashwagandha to boost your test to level 9 trillion, it's not going to work. But if you reduce your cortisol substantially with it and boost your test a little bit, that's where a lot of these other benefits really come from. Because if you think about it, in many cases, cortisol is kind of the anti-testosterone. Test makes you jack, cortisol makes you less jack, test makes you leaner, cortisol makes you less lean. All of a sudden, ashwagandha is like a little bit of a performance enhancer, a little bit of a muscle growth supplement. Like, it could be that ashwagandha on a deeper cellular level can boost your gains in the longer term. Hey folks, Dr. Mike here for RP Strength, and I have a huge update for you about the state of the research in 2025 about ashwagandha. Ashwagandha, I believe that is a direct quote from the movie The Lion King, and later the movie also called The Lion King, again, but now an updated, lifelike digital format. And Scott the Video Guy's absolutely favorite thing to do is to watch The Lion King on ice, off Broadway. Scott, how many times have you gone to Lion King on ice?
I mean, I have season tickets to Lion King on ice.
To every quote-unquote game of The Lion King on ice. All right, so here's the deal. A brand new, very large review article just hit the scene about ashwagandha, and it really is an awesome article because it covers so much of what you need to know about ashwagandha to figure out is it a supplement that you could benefit from taking, how, what to expect, downsides and risks, the whole gamut. So let's take a deep dive. The study name is Withania somnifera, in parentheses, ashwagandha, which is its plant name, supplementation, a review of its mechanisms, health benefits, and role in sport performance. I'm saying you at a party and you're like, damn, baby, you know what I'm saying, what's your name, girl? And she's like, Withania. You're like, what's up, Withania, feeling that. What's your last name? I feel like I've gone to class with you. She's like, somnifera. You're like, anyway, would you like some punch? Yes. It's a Diddy party. Scott, did you know that trial as of this recording is currently actually happening?
It's very exciting. Very
exciting times. Have you been keeping up with it?
I haven't, but I'm ready to see how it pans out. I know there's some sweating celebrities out there. Ashton Kutcher left the country, apparently.
Get the out of here.
He frequented those.
I mean, it's just good, clean fun, right? Baby oil.
Very clean.
Very clean. Literally clean, but morally, maybe not. The authors that made this study possible are awesome people. They are from Poland. They are from the Gdansk University of Physical Education and Sport in Poland. I'm going to butcher their names. Not as bad as Anglophone people would, because I got that secret Russian twist, but Polska Gurub. So let's see if I can get this. I'm gonna mispronounce these, but hopefully not terribly. So we have Mateusz Springel, Radzislav Lakowski. Oh, this is a dope, super Scott. This one has like 18 consonants. Zbigniew Yost. Like, God. Sir, what's your name? Zbigniew. Like, how do you spell it? He's like, don't worry about how you spell it. You know what I'm saying? But because they're Polish, they're probably all 6'3" and in perfect shape and 220 pounds and just exist like this because Polish people are better. It was published in February of 2025, which is very, very recent for a nutritional review article. So it's very top tier. And it was published in the Journal of Nutrition and Metabolism, which actually has the distinction of having one of the most exciting and indirect names in all scientific journals. Hey, what's this journal about? Nutrition and Metabolism. Oh, okay. So is that like kind of like nutrition and metabolism? Like, Oh, cool. Dope. And Scott, is it possible if we throw the PubMed link in the description there somewhere?
If I remember, yes.
Okay. If Scott remembers, yes. If not, ChatGPT exists. So the study design is very important. It is what's called a narrative review, which means that there are no formal, super grainy statistics applied to the whole thing. They just talk about all the studies, aggregate all the studies they can find, and in a way that is basically a descriptive way, talk about the results and the implications and conclusions and all that stuff. So it's not something you can cite and go, okay, exactly these things were found, but it is very helpful to get the big picture lay of the land, especially for practical applications. It's got limitations of not being as super ultra quantitative as we would like, but it's got real advantages in giving us a good qualitative description of the state of the field. And it does this very, very well. They studied mechanistic pathways of ashwagandha, which we're not going to cover here because they're honestly super sciencey and boring. I don't want to bore you guys to tears. There are many other great YouTube channels for that sort of thing, probably this one on most days. They covered sport performance outcomes like strength and power and VO2 max. We'll be getting to all those. Body composition shifts. They're talking about muscle gain, a little bit of a mention of fat loss, some appetite and cravings control stuff. Clinical domains like fertility, anxiety, metabolic health, glucose control, lipids, aging, and they addressed future research gaps, which we'll talk about what those are down the line. So I would say there are about 6 main variables that they studied, which we'll go through, and then 7 secondary variables that are maybe not front of mind, but nonetheless important. We're going to go through each variable and basically give you guys the raw, super quick cut deal of like, what does ashwagandha do for this outcome that you might be interested in? The first, most important outcome ever, anywhere in all of science. Like we got Archimedes, you know what I'm saying? Copernicus, they did great work. Darwin, Einstein, Ray Kurzweil, all of that led into lean mass gains. Lean mass gains is the most important thing you could ever study because it's how jacked you are. And what is more important than being jacked? Oh, in case you have an answer, check this out. Exactly. Boom. So most of these benefits through all of the research I'm going to cite is seen in that roughly 300 to 600 to 900 milligram per day range. So typically you take about 600 milligrams of ashwagandha, usually in the morning when you wake up, and then you do that for 8 to 12 weeks, which is the duration of many of the studies involved here, and you're going to see some of these benefits. So for all of this applies, and for lean mass, there is a discernible increase in lean mass that's measured and verifiable. But it comes out to roughly a few pounds of muscle over that typical time course, which is, as I roughly estimate it with the help of OpenAI's O3 reasoning model, something like 25 to 40% of the effect of the tier 1 muscle gain supplement that's legal and available and has no crazy downsides, creatine. So it's about 25 to 40% of the potential muscle mass gains of creatine, which is like good, right? Because creatine's really good as far as, not pharmaceutical enhancement goes. Mild, but like, yeah, okay, ashwagandha probably going to grow you a little bit of muscle, which is really, really cool. But it's not going to just fill you up with total jackness right away. So just know what you're getting into is a little bit of a mild boost. Very important to know. For max strength, like 1RM bench and squat, for example, we saw another similar, this time a little bit higher, 40 to 60% of the effect of creatine. So notably, a high effect size. It was really good, really distinct. And it looks like, you get a kind of 5 to 8% over 8 to 12 week protocols of a bump in 1 rep max from ashwagandha, where from creatine you typically see an 8 to 12% jump. So this is good. And remember, these ashwagandha works through different pathways than creatine, so it's likely in many cases additive. So throwing in ashwagandha during an important training phase, starting to look like, hey, it's not the end of the world, but it might very well help. They did an examination on power and explosive performance, and there were like 5 to 7, depending on how you count them, randomized control trials involving power outcomes with ashwagandha supplementation. And all kinds of different subjects, mixed training status, some trained, some untrained, some somewhere in between. And the gains there are much smaller for 2 reasons. One, ashwagandha seems not to have as big an effect on power, but also power is such a small change anyway because it changes so slowly and so little over time that it's a little bit of a measurement problem. So it's not this crazy explosive supplement, but it will help you on the margins in most cases. What it does do, even better than creatine, better than most supplements and maybe all supplements that you would typically take, is it does increase your VO2 max. Multiple studies have shown this. It seems pretty well hypothesized at this point that this is a good effect. And so it really, in the boost, seems to be over the course of 8 to 12 weeks, roughly 4 milliliters per kilogram per minute gain in VO2 max. And the way you measure VO2 max is typically like, if you have a VO2 max of under 30, you're considered probably in pretty poor health. 30 to 40 is kind of like a normal person. 40 to 50, someone's in really good shape. 50 to 60 is like really good shape. 60 plus is like Olympic caliber good shape. And depending on the modality and how you measure it, 70 plus is like, you're on some other shit and there ain't too many people like you. And so, you get a boost over 8 to 12 weeks of 4, like, man, like that's pretty good. If we round that optimistically to 5, that's like, like getting you from in good shape to like pretty damn good shape. So definitely keep an eye on more research for this, because if the VO2 max stuff plays out, that increase in aerobic capacity could increase recovery between sets and sessions, get you a little bit better for high reps. Here's the thing about VO2 max. Truthfully, I could give 0 fucks about VO2. Okay, I do compete in jiu-jitsu. I can give a lot of fucks about VO2, but I'm not good at it, and I don't care. And being jacked is the ultimate thing in this world. That's a literal quote by God from every holy text. If you ever read every single holy text, that's the 11th commandment. And so VO2 max is fine wherever it is. Just keep it away from me. However, if you are doing high rep sets and myoreps and myorep match stuff, really clustering your sets together like you would in the RP hypertrophy app link in description, then if your VO2 max sucks, it's actually more difficult to push your muscles close to failure because your cardio gives out first. Your muscles are like, I still got it. And your heart and lungs are like, we ain't doing shit. So if you boost your VO2 max in a way that requires a lot of endurance training, you might be giving up some of the adaptability, because endurance training does make you better at endurance, but might, after a while, reduce your ability to gain muscle because it transforms your fiber types a little bit from faster twitch, which grow muscle really well, to slower twitch, which don't grow it as much. So at the end of the day, if you can take a supplement that like meaningfully boosts your VO2 max, man, like you might be well on your way to getting a few more reps out close to failure when you're breathing really hard with short rest breaks, especially if you have a condensed training window of a few hours a week where you're doing back-to-back alternating compound supersets and stuff like that. And like, yeah, this could definitely help. So definitely keep an eye on this VO2 max situation. Mirroring that, the recovery and fatigue data is interesting because many of the studies show a decrease in soreness perception and an increase in perceived recovery. And this isn't a huge deal. It's as measured recovery scales, 10 or 20% better. But listen, if someone said like, hey, do you want to take a supplement that'll boost your recovery, however we measure it, by 15%, I wouldn't exactly say no. Sounds pretty good. And because so far ashwagandha has seemed to have no negative health effects, it's super cheap. It doesn't screw up a ton of stuff with hormone-wise, which we'll see in a bit. Like, man, all these things added up. Like, you know what I'm saying? Looking pretty good, looking pretty damn good. Now, the next thing is satellite cell activation. Satellite cells are these cells that sit just outside of your functional muscle cells. And if you train really hard and really push the limits of growth, they activate and they fuse into your muscle and help grow it even bigger. And even after you lose muscle size, if you don't train for a little while, the satellite cells kind of never leave. And then you start training again. It's like training with better genetics. That's why rebound gains from like being off for a while are humongous. You get back all of your muscle really fast. In animal data, very limited animal data in ashwagandha, they have seen the higher incorporation and higher proliferation and differentiation of satellite cells. So no human data yet, so let's not go crazy because rodents sometimes be a little different. However, Scott, you ever see a mouse and you're like, I'm not like into trans-species stuff, but that's a cute mouse.
I mean, they're adorable.
I don't mean like that.
I mean, sexy, adorable.
I see. So you and I were saying the same thing.
Yeah.
Guys, we are a God-fearing channel. And we don't mean to put this Satanism on you constantly. Seemingly subconsciously, it flows from us. Well, from me, but Scott, you've never really pulled me away from the satanic shit, have you?
No, I let you burn in sin.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, look, like you can't fool God, right? You're like, hey, Mike's just going to be himself. And an old lightning bolt comes through. In any case, speculating on mouse attractiveness completely aside, yeah, man, this looks promising. This looks promising and definitely food for thought. So it could be that ashwagandha on a deeper cellular level can boost your gains in the longer term. That is all the primary variables. But that doesn't mean they're the only important ones, because we have 7 secondary variables we're going to talk about that are also at the very least insightful. And the first one, true to my nature, is ashwagandha's effect on anxiety. Anxiety is a thing that you get as a secondary effect of being Jewish. That's not wrong, but I guess that's not the whole thing, because other people also get anxiety. And so anxiety is totally fine for physique. The problem is that oftentimes anxiety will reduce your quality of sleep, duration of sleep. It'll boost your cortisol, which actually directly does inhibit muscle growth, performance, recovery, and all that stuff. And so as a psychological booster, ashwagandha absolutely has an effect on anxiety that's modest and really like what you could describe as fairly convincing. It does reduce anxiety. And it seems to work best in chronically stressed adults, i.e. at least half of you. The dose response is still fuzzy. We're not sure exactly where that peaks out, but at 600 milligrams, you're going to get one good effect on average in most cases. And so if it's just for psychological purposes, this will just help you be less anxious, which like objectively makes your life better. But on physiological purposes, because it's probably doing the anxiety reduction, at least in part, maybe in whole, from lowering your cortisol levels, which we'll get to in just a second, this is a good thing for making you more jacked as well. Chill people get more jacked on average than people who can't chill. That's a real thing. Next, HPTA, hypothalamic pituitary axis, is going to be, there's technically a gonadal in there somewhere, but we'll skip that part. I always end up talking about gonads. Scott, have you ever looked at a mouse's gonads and you were like, dude, old boy has it up, just doing it?
I didn't know that about them, but now I'm going to Google image search.
Honestly, bro? Okay, so in high school biology, I helped my science teacher take care of some of the animals because I frankly had no friends and he was an amazing person. And once we got some rats shipped over for some like experiments the students were doing, and it's supposed to be female only rats, but they put a male in by accident. He was 2 times the size of the female rats. And Scott, like I kid you not, bro, like he weighed like a pound, right? Like he was the size of like your forearm.
It's a big mouse.
Okay, right? So he was the size of, he was a rat. He was a rat. It's a huge mouse. Holy shit. He was the size of your forearm, but his testicles, which is how we knew he was a male, by the way, we didn't have to look hard. They were, Scott, no joke, half the size of an adult man's balls.
Oh my God.
That ratio of body to nut size is like goated. I was like, wow, what? And here's something you might want to not hear.
How did they taste?
Amazing. Oh, well, I didn't eat them. I didn't kill the rat. I did hook up with the rat. No joke. He crawled over the cage, like just like crawling on top of the cage with all the other female rats. And I kid you not, bro, this was really disturbing. He had like some kind of glandular secretion on his testicles. And it rubbed, like you could see it like leaving a little bit of fluid on the cage as he like literally dragged his nuts over the cage. And the female rats, Scott, were desperately trying to scamper up towards him.
Wow.
Like freaking out, like just trying to climb the cage. Like, Scott, they were trying to worship their king.
Wow. I'm trying to get some of that secretion. You know what I'm saying?
It was, you feel me? It was like the manliest shit I'd ever seen in my life. Like this guy, like, imagine like people were expecting a certain thing and another thing shows up that's 2 times the size with gigantor balls and has got the ladies cooking.
Damn.
King energy.
Your boy's secreting over here.
Secreting. And funny enough, I believe, if memory serves, the first scientist, of course, a German, tried and successfully before isolating testosterone, blended and injected rat testicles into himself.
Oh.
And he got like a virilizing effect. I'm gonna tell you right now, like, I'm sure he had a fever for a long time. It's just there's a lot of stuff in there that's not testosterone. That later he had children, Scott, and they came out as rat people.
Wow.
That part's not true. They were a quarter rat person because he had half human DNA by then and half rat DNA in his own genitals. And the woman he met and loved was, believe it or not, fully human, just not my predilection. But then 1/4 rat babies. Anyway, that was one hell of a tangent. That's what we're known for. Very robust dampening of cortisol from most of these studies on ashwagandha, and a little bit, but notable and detectable and real-world bump in testosterone. If you're going to take ashwagandha to boost your test to level 9 trillion, it's not going to work. But if you reduce your cortisol substantially with it and boost your test a little bit, that's where a lot of these other benefits really come from. Because if you think about it, in many cases, cortisol is kind of the anti-testosterone. Test makes you jack, cortisol makes you less jack. Test makes you leaner, cortisol makes you less lean. Test fills you with confidence, cortisol fills you with literally the opposite of like a feeling of fear and vulnerability. So if you really lower cortisol and you really lower testosterone, that's just kind of less of you as a human. If you really lower cortisol with ashwagandha and you boost testosterone a little bit, that on the aggregate is a pretty big effect. So this is really good stuff, which makes ashwagandha a reliable buffer to stress. And the endocrine shifts we saw with testosterone and cortisol are still in that normal physiological range. It doesn't screw you up. It doesn't shut down your testosterone production. It just makes you a little bit more optimized, much more optimized on the cortisol side, on the stress side, a little bit optimized on the testosterone side, which is really, really dope. But it doesn't end there because ashwagandha has mechanistically solid proof and a little bit of human proof now emerging that shows a reduction of inflammatory cytokines, basically molecules that like inflame your whole body and make all kinds of shit go not so well. And this plausibly contributes to the recovery benefits, but probably contributes to health in a pretty decent way. So all of a sudden, ashwagandha is like a little bit of a performance enhancer, a little bit of a muscle growth supplement, a little bit of strength, and a little bit of health. Like, this is starting to look real curious. We can't get too far ahead of ourselves with speculation. I'll say why towards the end of this in the kind of limitations of this sort of review and all the studies in it. But we can get very, very curious. Appetite and cravings control was studied. 0 human appetite-specific trials, very speculative via cortisol-leptin interaction. It would say it's interesting, need much more data. I just don't think that ashwagandha is going to be a big appetite suppressant. To be completely honest, like with tirzepatide around, you just don't need any more appetite suppressant. But it's probably, if it's an appetite suppressant at all, which is unclear, it's going to be a very, very mild one. Some people, when they have high cortisol exposure, they get way less hungry. Some people, no change, and other people get way more hungry, stress eaters, which not everyone is, by the way. And so if you are a stress eater because of the cortisol-leptin interaction, yeah, ashwagandha might actually substantially regulate your appetite, but it's not going to be this drug that dependably most people take and their appetite goes down. On the glycemia thing, glucose control, which is really predictive of health, they have demonstrated a decrease in fasting glucose and glycosylated hemoglobin, hemoglobin A1C, which is a really good long-term measure of glucose health, essentially, glycemic health. And so it's nowhere near as powerful as frontline medications for diabetes, like semaglutide and tirzepatide and a bunch of Trulicity and all those other ones. I think is that an HIV medication or a diabetes drug? I know. The glycemia stuff, good news. Not a big thing, but hey, all these sprinklings of these very mild to moderate positives starting to look pretty damn good. Same story with lipids, blood fats, as with glucose, mildly beneficial. The pooled data seems to show that we have a reduction in total cholesterol, a reduction in LDL, the bad cholesterol, and unchanged on the good cholesterol, but also a bit of a reduction in triglycerides. So nothing crazy, single-digit percentage shifts, nothing you can get from real medicines for this kind of stuff. Sure as shit, not what you would get from semaglutide and tirzepatide, but in the right direction, which is really good. And then the last variable is kind of aging and age-related vitality. There's just early glimmers of this. I wouldn't put a lot of stock into it. There are 3 small trials in older adults and a few cognition studies showing memory and reaction time perks. And this may be something you would expect from cortisol modulation, especially, so I'll tell you this, if you have very high cortisol levels, you can actually like reduce temporarily your ability to be fluidly cognizant of things because you're in like fight or flight mode. It's like someone's like, there's terrorists at the front of the plane and you're in the back shaking with and like a straw you're going to defend yourself with, and someone's like, hey, can you factor this equation? You're like, what the like, it's kind of low key like that. So just through that mechanism alone, we could potentially see some of this cognitive enhancement. Nothing to write home about yet. So I would just say that one's like, maybe not. So the bottom line kind of insight that the authors of the study draw, and it's an amazing study, I would highly encourage you to look through it if you're really sciencey, is ashwagandha is a, quote, moderate multi-mechanism adjunct. It's not like a creatine level, like just totally powerful supplement for getting jacked and strong, etc., but it is potentially, because halfway to creatine on strength and size and all that stuff, has some really awesome stress management, VO2 max enhancing, and some other health benefits for inflammation, etc., that are really, really good on the aggregate. Now, that's the good news. Let's get to a little bit of not so good news on study limitations and kind of hold our horses a little bit and then get to the TLDR. So first of all, this is a narrative review and not a systematic review or meta-analysis. So they didn't do any like risk of bias scoring, which can eliminate entire pools of studies because like that study is almost certainly bullshit kind of thing. So they're really just kind of vibing, but vibing is very important, especially on qualitative stuff. There is a high sample heterogeneity, which means like the studies are kind of like all sorts of different populations. So you can't really tell like, hey, like what about like just testing if like one specific, like a young male, 18 to 22-year-old college resistance trained population 10 times in a row on all sorts of different stuff. You get a really good understanding because it's a very stable environment. High heterogeneity means like there's a study on old people here, there's a study on young women here, there's 3 studies on males here, 2 of them untrained, 1 trained. You kind of have to like scratch your head and be like, okay, we're seeing a lot of stuff in these different ones, but this gets a little complicated. So our like confidence of concluding this is really what's happening and why is a little bit lower. Typically what you want is a good homogeneity of baseline studies. And when you have a lot of that to really conclude, like in this specific group of people, something is really for sure happening. Later, you get a heterogeneous bloom of studies out, very different kinds of studies to conclude that, okay, we have a mechanism, we have the straightforward understanding, and now we have the application to different people. If you have a few very homogeneous studies, you can say, okay, in this population it works. We have no idea if it's going to work for anyone else. If you have a small number of heterogeneous studies, you're like, we don't really, there's so much complex shit going on. We don't really know what's happening. So this is a little bit more of that latter. Not terrible, but not ideal. And most of these studies are fewer than 60 participants, which means you can't detect small effects. That's probably for the best because small effects are usually pointless to detect because they don't do anything. And it's 8 to 12 weeks long in most cases, just limitation of normal study design. So we don't really know what happens after 3 months with ashwagandha. Doesn't seem like anything bad from like user reports, but we can't be sure of that. There is a sex bias, which actually, if you guys don't know this, but Scott, the video guy, used to be a romance novelist, and he has a whole series, 1 through 18, of a book called Sex Bias. Pretty good, huh, Scott?
Yeah, it's good. Yeah. A romance novelist. And I the cover art is like, a damsel in distress getting rescued by a man on a horse. Wow,
that's pretty straightforward. I like that's the cover art for a book called Sex Bias. You're like, but does it have anything to do with the book? Like, oh, no. It's about a young lawyer who's struggling to find a romantic connection. But there is a horse scene.
Mr. Hand, look it up.
Do not look up Mr. Hand, the horse scene. Go look it up. If you're a child, don't look it up. This channel's for adults. Scott.
Sorry.
Dude, you know what, bro? I think I told you this, but like I was at a mall in Texas and I got basically surrounded and bullied by a group of 12 to 14-year-olds. They were very kind. They were sweet people. But then I was like, you guys watch the channel? And they were like, yeah. And I'm like, stop watching the channel. Yeah. There's nothing on here. It's Christian insane for you folks. Good God. Go watch them saying Blues Clues, shit like that. Do I have a problem with telling different age kids apart, Scott?
Yeah, I do as well.
Can you imagine it? Like you have like a 13-year-old cousin, you get her birthday gift. You're like, it's Pocahontas, the DVD set. She's like, are you serious? You're like, don't kids love shit like this? All right, I'll get you a Barbie. She's like, I'm leaving. All right, whatever. The hell would you get a third? Scott, I actually realized something while telling that bullshit fake story. If like I have multiple friends and family who are eventually going to have 13-year-old girls, I have absolutely no idea what you would get these people for a birthday gift.
That's a great question. I actually don't either.
What the hell do kids like nowadays? Also, it's an awkward age because you're like not kid anymore, but like a grown up. Alanis Morissette CD.
They like makeup stuff now, right?
But aren't you giving a kind of like, okay, so there's a problem with that. Scott, you're not wrong. But one hell of a hint with makeup. She's like, hey, you need this. Yeah. Could be taken wrong. Another one is mom and dad could be like, what are you doing? Like, I think your daughter likes this. I'm going to see myself out. Landmine. And the last part is like, Scott, like, what do you know about what type of makeup that people use?
It is absolutely zero.
Like the store has makeup and people buy it. Yeah. That's as far as I go.
You can go in and ask. I'll tell you. They got girls working there trying to help you.
You go to like Macy's and you're like, hey.
To buy a 13.
So one of my nieces is 13 and what kind of makeup do those people use? She's like, I don't know. What's her complexion? You're like, what's a complexion? She's like, get out of here. Oh, by the way, here, buy this $250 makeup gift certificate. Yeah, see, Scott, that really probably is the move, huh?
Yeah.
Like an Amazon gift certificate.
You don't go to Macy's, you go to Ulta. God, everybody knows that.
Whoa, you do know some things.
I've been drugged into Ulta.
Isn't Ulta times. Like a mattress store?
No, no.
All right. Well, there you go. And that's what Mike and Scott know about 13-year-old females. Functionally nothing. I can't even pick them out of a crowd. So sex bias, that's how we got to this. 80% of these studies were on young men, a few on old folks. The first female randomized control trial for athletes only appeared in 2025. So that's a bit of a limitation. So if you're female, I actually can reliably tell you as a researcher, I have no idea what ashwagandha is going to do for you. Who the knows? We need more data on that. Doesn't mean you shouldn't take it or something like that, but you probably shouldn't take it or something like that. Geographic clustering. Many of these studies were run in India, which is dope. India is a vibe place, but with identical extract suppliers. And so you got to wonder, is there potential publication funding bias? Like if we had 10 studies on creatine and 9 of them were from Wisconsin, I'd be like, what the hell is going on here in Wisconsin? It doesn't mean there's bias. It just means we can't get too far ahead of ourselves and be like, for sure, ashwagandha does all these great things. We got to be like, hey, there's some really cool stuff. Let's see if a lot of other labs around the world can confirm this before we go out to the store and spend our hard-earned money on gallons of this stuff. There's a bit of ambiguity on dose and extract. From what I understand, it could be wrong. KSM 66, I think it's called, is like the best ashwagandha. It's kind of the purest, but I sure should have used other ashwagandha before, and apparently it's not as good. So especially if you go buy it at the store, I would say like you look for high quality ashwagandha and maybe talk to ChatGPT about what that even is before you go. Don't just get anything, because a lot of supplement companies are great, and some of them are they'll just sell you whatever. Like, yeah, there's technically ashwagandha in here. I think they just like got the bark of the tree and put it in there. So that's not going to work. There's a little bit of kind of mechanistic leapfrogging. We say like, satellite cells worked in mice and they're going to work in people. Now the guys truthfully did not say that in the study, but if you misread the study, you can get like, oh my God, dude, ashwagandha is going to double my satellite cells by 18 trillion. Unlikely. Possible, but certainly not something we can confidently conclude. Here's the thing. You guys might have noticed, the sharp ear might have noticed that there's just no good fat loss data yet. So we didn't talk about fat loss. And so there's no reason to suspect fat loss is going to be hugely affected. Now, slightly increased testosterone, significantly reduced cortisol, over the long stretch of 12-week of a hypocaloric diet could go better with ashwagandha and lead permissibly to more fat loss, but not directly through some like this thing literally burns fat. That's probably not happening. And of course, I already mentioned this, short follow-ups, nothing really longer than 16 weeks in literature. So chronic endocrine or hepatic changes like liver and hormone stuff is an open field. It says, like basically like safety is a question mark. It's just highly unlikely ashwagandha is going to be unsafe because the margins by which it moves your hormones are in the good directions. All of the stuff you see with the blood work is actually in the very good direction. And like that doesn't boost your testosterone enough to really shut anything down. That's not 100%. It's just nothing you should worry about, but it would be good to see more long-term literature. So TLDR, for all of the conclusions here, ashwagandha seems like a really cool supplement for keeping your test up a little bit and dropping your cortisol substantially. It can definitely help keep anxiety lower. So I take it during my times when I take slightly more special sports supplements that drive me insane. And in the real world, that can be a really big boost if you struggle with anxiety. And you just don't want to expect rapid muscle gains or fat losses. Like, don't take ashwagandha for 12 weeks and like, I felt a little better, everything went better, but I didn't get ripped. This supplement sucks. Like, that's just not what you're going to go get out of it. You can get much better muscle gains out of like anabolics, SARMs, modern weight loss drugs like, Ligandrol for the SARMs, tirzepatide for the weight loss drugs. That's really heavy hitter stuff. Way more side effects for those drugs, but Ligandrol, way more side effects. But definitely like it's not that category of like jacked fuel or something like that. However, especially in like the last 2/3 of a fat loss phase with hard training and good diet, using the RP Diet Coach app, using the RP Hypertrophy app, if you're interested, link in description, it might make its biggest difference in that situation. And at 300 or 600 milligrams every day of good high quality ashwagandha supplement, take it in the morning is totally fine. Yeah, it might make things go just a bit smoother, which really, over the course of time, can be a big deal. And I'll see you guys next time.